Okay, I'd like to call the Township of Lopatcong Special Council meeting of July 12, 2018 to order, and ask everyone to bow their head for a moment of silence, please. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided indicating the time and place of the meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, by advertising a notice in the Star Gazette and the Express Times, and by posting a copy on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Roll call, please.
Councilman Belcaro.
Here.
Councilman Polito.
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Here.
Council President Pryor.
Here.
Mayor Mendes.
Here. Do we have anybody in the public who wants to comment on the agenda items only? Seeing none. Gentlemen, you're up.
What would be the best way to angle this for everybody?
We can see it from here, but what I would ask tonight, normally we just save our public comment to the end of the meeting, but being as we only have 3 people here,
Sure.
I would say if they have any questions as we go tonight,
Please.
if that's okay with you, then we can just kind of, you know, so,
I'll turn this maybe a little more angular, and then if there's any
that's fine.
problems.
You guys want to move up so you can see, or you fine back there, Gary? Okay.
Mike, could you spread the seat?
John, come on, so you can see,
Just push down.
ask questions as we
Push
go.
down the middle. There you go.
John?
You like that seat?
I guess he does, okay, we're good, leave him go.
Okay. I've had these fall down too many times in the meeting, so I'm trying to make sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President, members of the council. My name is Jeff Malanik. I am the regional partner for Bridge Development Partners, LLC.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Sure. M-I-L-A-N-A-I-K.
Thank you.
Do I need the mic, or can everybody hear me okay?
There's a mic right above you.
Yeah, we need it for the recording too.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just didn't know if you wanted me to hold anything.
Yep.
Speak up.
That's why I asked. So I will speak up to you. We've been asked to come, and we've wanted to take an opportunity to give you an update and a presentation on where we are. As you know, we know this particular site has been around for a number of years. I believe the first time Mayor and Council President I met with you, I recalled the time I came up here and actually interviewed for a job when I was Cameron Pump. Being a mechanical engineer, I love big geeky things, and they made big geeky things. So I've been aware of the site for a while, but my most recent involvement as a result of my history in New Jersey, been an industrial real estate developer in the state of New Jersey since 1987, when I was a much younger lad. I ran a company called Heller Industrial Parks, Inc. out of Edison, New Jersey. One of the top 10 privately held industrial owner developers in the country at the time. Mostly warehouses, and we ended up, during my tenure, took it from 7 million square feet of warehouses to 16.5 in 6 states across the country. So I have a lot of experience and track record. Full disclosure, I am a born and raised Jersey guy. Tried to get out, couldn't get out, so I'm stuck here. Raised a family. My dad's from here, my mom's from here, and we're Jersey through and through. The reason I mention that, it's a unique thing to Jersey in the development business New Jersey is a challenging place to do business, as you know. Challenging place to be a developer. And I'm not focusing this commentary on anything in the town or the board or anything like that, but the regulatory process, DEP, EPA, all those things you get involved with are really challenging. So in 2013, when I left, the folks from Bridge out of Chicago said, look, we do industrial development, we'd like to come to New Jersey. Now you have to realize when I left in 13, the line was a mile long of guys that said, hey, you know what you're doing, I want to come to New Jersey. But the standing joke was, you know, line starts around the corner, right? So what I was looking for is the right opportunity of people and people that understood what needed to get done to develop in New Jersey. And I think it's important that the little background that I'm going through so you understand who we are and what motivates us. So in the distribution business, there's a term, logistics is warehousing, right, and trucking and et cetera. The term is called last mile. You're probably starting to hear about it as you read about it, right? And what last mile really means, how close can companies, whether it's a Target or a Walmart or an Amazon or you name it, how close can they get to the end consumer? Because we're all seeing constantly now, my family included, they have to have the box tomorrow morning. I can wait a week, it doesn't matter to me, but my sons want it the same day, my wife wants it the next day. That's last mile distribution. All the businesses around are focused on time to the customer. So when Bridge approached me, they said, look, we want to focus in on last mile distribution. And why New Jersey? If you look at the population within 300 to 400 miles of New York, it's over a third of the population of the United States. I mean, what I do isn't really technically challenging from that end. And I said, well, that's great, but we don't really have any land available in New Jersey to speak of anymore, believe it or not, especially for warehousing. I know out here we deal with highlands, but even if I go up and down the I-95 corridor, a lot of land restrictions, you just don't build warehouses on farmland anymore, it just doesn't happen. And they said, but we want to be real close to the core market, so that means we're going to take on challenging sites. We're going to take on sites that need building demolition, take on sites that need environmental remediation, and take on sites that need what we refer to as geotechnical, meaning how do you treat the ground, like out here we have karst and all that. How do you work with the geotechnical to support the buildings? Because they're challenging. And their question to me was simply this: do you have any of that in New Jersey? I said, let's go. I saw the model instantly because I saw the opportunity to create something. So my next question to them was, who is the capital behind us if we're going to do this venture? Because in the industry that I've been in for 28 years, I've worked really hard to develop my reputation. And I don't want to start pursuing things that I can't deliver. That's not who I am. They then explained to me that the capital behind us is a pension fund. If you're familiar with how big projects are run, a lot of pension funds, insurance companies, or whatever, are the capital behind these projects. In this case, our capital partner is Texas Teachers Retirement System. It's probably the third largest pension fund in the country. They have somewhere around 500 billion, I'm sorry, get my billions and millions mixed up, $500 billion in assets from the employees of Texas. And what these funds do is want to invest in properties because they obviously have to pay the pensions, right? It's the same thing. And I said, does the capital understand what you're telling me we're going to do? And they said yes. So on that, I opened up the office in 14. Our first project, really quickly, if you drive down 78 where the Garden State Parkway come together, the old Tuscan Dairy site, sat there for decades. I will admit, I also did not know how to get to it, because you can, if you ever drive the area, you can drive around and around it, but there's no obvious way to get there. Found out it was right off of 22, it's kind of silly on my part. And that site required everything we needed. We have over $1 million worth of demolition. We had geotechnical work we had to do, and believe it or not, even though it was Tuscan Dairy, they had leaking oil tanks, groundwater issues, all the above. So we tackled it. We bought it in December of 15, and we developed it in 16. And if you drive by there now, you'll see a 260,000 foot warehouse building, of which one customer is called Boxed.com, B-O-X-E-D. It's an e-commerce company that does, I guess I'd call it the Costco bulk items, and they ship all that via the internet. Somebody clicks and then you get a case of toilet paper on your, there you go. So hopefully they deliver on time. So from there, then we looked around for other opportunities and found the opportunities were laying around in sites that I had looked at for 10 to 15 years ago. Perth Amboy, for instance, American Smelting and Refining Company. They call it a SARCO. It sounds better than American Smelting and Refining Company. They smelted copper at the Arthur Kill. 104-acre site was originally 52, but when you have slag as a byproduct of that, you push it into the Arthur Kill for decades and you make the land bigger. Well, now we had to figure out how to deal with everything that they did. We took that site on. It had 52 areas of concern environmentally. We had geotechnical problems of surcharge, dynamic compaction, CMCs. We had to cap the site. We had to do everything. Ultimately, where I couldn't figure it out 15 years ago because the market conditions didn't support the dollars I had to put in, today is a different story. We completed that project last year, built 3 buildings, a 700,000-foot building, a 220,000-foot building, and a 354,000-foot building. We put them up, and before they were done, we found customers. First customer was Target Corporation. They came in, they wanted to do a combination of fulfillment and also some e-commerce to supply their customer base. God bless. What I really liked about that was that city has been hurting a very long time because of all the industry that left along the river, many of them. And they used to employ thousands, tens of thousands of people along the river. These legacy sites were left behind, no ratables to speak of, no buildings, no jobs. We were able to come in successfully and transform it. And I remember clear as day the day I brought Target in to meet the Mayor Diaz of Perth Amboy. Came in and they introduced themselves, said this is what we'd like to do, and we're going to hire somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people, and we really picked this location for transportation and because we know you have an abundant labor source. Fast forward to date, they've hired 500 people, 65% residents of Perth Amboy. Mayor couldn't be more thrilled. And now finally there's ratables in place for that city. So we're in the right place at the right time. The reason I mention this story and a little of my background, I think it's important because I'm fully aware of the legacy of this site. It's been languishing for a number of years. Certainly not any result of the action, or that matter, inaction, by Lopatcong Township. It just hasn't been. I'm finding now, I'm kind of the 4th, 5th, sometimes the 6th person on that site, but we have the track record, we have the capital, and since 2014, I have built 3.5 million square feet of distribution buildings in the state of New Jersey, exit 10 and north, on sites very similar to Ingersoll Rand. So what we did is about almost 4 years ago now, I heard the site was going to be redeveloped by somebody else, and I reached out to them to make contact because I hadn't known that they were actually a developer per se. And I'm not trying to say anything wrong or not wrong about them, but I didn't really understand their direction, motivations. So I got engaged with them and offered to help them think through the process a little bit with the hope that we would either partner with them or perhaps buy them out if we were fortunate enough someday. So we began to work through some of the plans that they had, and some of the plans they had were not quite what the market would demand for buildings, because again, we're doing this on a daily basis. I know what the market needs as far as clear heights and trailer storage and all that. They had some unusual buildings, to say the least. So we began to develop the buildings from, I think at one point they had 11, to ultimately you kind of recognize that this is kind of where the last set of general development plans wound up on the entire property. I'm proud to say this is more of my work than theirs at that point, but we wanted to ultimately see what we could yield as far as a building project that would be able to get built at least for people. So we went through round and round from joint ventures to you name it, and I'm proud to say, after many painful negotiations, we are the proud owners of the Ingersoll Rand property. We bought it with the money from Texas teachers. Any prior developers are not associated with this project anymore. They are completely out. What we've been doing since beginning of the year when we closed is, as you can imagine on a site this large, there's a tremendous amount of engineering that needs to be done on these sites. From whatever general development plans they had approved and grades and detention basins, it just takes a lot of work because it's 380 acres. So in as much as I would suspect people are saying, okay, they closed, nothing's happening, I've probably spent about $200,000 so far getting through that process to get us to where we are today. And just as of where we are today, as I said, the overall property is going to have the 7 buildings that you see here. But more in particular, what I'd like to really discuss and show you is the building that we are proposing for Lopatcong. The Lopatcong parcel, as you're aware, and if it helps, I can flip it so 22 is on the bottom, but this is Route 22 across the top here. And what we've laid out is a building of about 975,000 square feet. What we refer to as a cross-dock warehouse, meaning that there's loading doors on this side and there's loading doors on that side. And we have trailer storage across the very back of this piece away from Route 22. Now, some of the challenges with designing projects like this, obviously one of the things was access. One of the points that we discussed in prior meetings was relation to traffic. And as you know, we take that very seriously. First thing we needed to do was look at how do we get access that really doesn't impede the town, and how can we work with the state. So we have an approval, not quite the final approval yet, but we're about probably 60 days away from getting the final approval, a full intersection here at Route 22. And that'll allow the traffic heading from 78 to make a left at the traffic signal and come in. It'll also allow the traffic coming out, you'll see the sweeping turn here, to go back to 78. It does provide for access going west and also coming east from here. And during the site plan testimony, which I think we're scheduled for the end of the month, I don't have the exact date in my head, you will recognize the traffic patterns, particularly for trucks, are really back and forth from Route 78, because why is distribution in the Lehigh market so popular? It's Route 78, to be perfectly honest with you. They come right out of the port and they head west. Right now they're completely going past the area, and they're heading into Bethlehem, Eastern Lehigh Valley, Route 100, Central PA, continuing to go further. The port of New Jersey is actually the 3rd largest port in the United States when it comes to goods coming in. That's why this area has been growing this way. So it was important for us as we looked at this to develop a signalized intersection so we could accommodate the back and forth from Route 78, which, you know, during the program you'll see when we present the site plan, that's going to be the bulk of the truck traffic. But obviously,
You're on a roll, but you're right on an issue that I have a question on.
I know we talked about it, yes.
It's a hot issue. People ask about that left-hand turn. As I understand it, you're shifting 2 lanes onto your property to give you room in the center to put 2 turning lanes. And people have asked me about the queuing distance. They're afraid of 3-4 trucks backing up there and, you know, just jamming that area up.
Again, I am not the traffic expert, so I don't want to, but I assure you by working with the state and the county and our traffic engineers, you'll be satisfied, and please ask all those questions at site plan. But it's all been calculated based on trip generation. And we had submitted a study that we paid for. We were asked ahead of time to say, okay, would you talk to us about traffic because it's a concern? And we had dynamic engineering do traffic counts, and I didn't bring it with me. I felt that was more appropriate at site plan hearing. But what you'll notice in there, that all of that's accounted for. And their recommendation, or this time, is that it will work with the additional truck traffic and car traffic generated from the site proposed. But even if it doesn't, the signalization, and we went all the way back to Roseberry, if you remember, that was a recommendation you had made. We went all the way back there because we understood the importance of understanding what happens at all the various traffic lights. So I believe that was addressed in there, but we can certainly speak to that.
Yeah, if I could say a few things here since we're on traffic. I read this, and I appreciate it. I was one of the guys that demanded that they study the whole corridor, and I appreciate them doing that. There are some areas that are going to be level of service F. Their projections say you're going to get there anyway, whether this project is built or not. I understand that. I still have a little trouble getting from the number of trucks on the site to the traffic. You have space for over 800 trucks. How does this thing operate? Is it 24/7? Do you have a truck in the morning? A truck leaves and two more. If you do a little arithmetic, you get phenomenal number of trucks.
Understood.
And we have trucks now. You get to 519, truck stops at the light level, lower level of service. They're all going to stop. It takes them 10 seconds, 20 seconds just to get up to speed, and that's what people are talking about.
Understood. Understood. And again, I don't want to speak exactly to that, but I can generally answer the questions. So when we design buildings, and we actually build buildings without having a customer, right? We build on what's referred to as speculation, kind of the field of dreams mentality.
Yeah.
If we build it, they will come. What we know to design for is what your typical distribution users would look at. So we typically put in about somewhere between one door per every 7,500 square feet of building area on the two, and we try to mimic it for trailers. Because even though those spots are indicated in the building, doesn't mean they're utilized for daily truck turns, is the general answer to it, right? We don't know, especially if you're going to the port and back, that's one turn per day because of the distance. So even if I have, and I can't quite see the numbers here, call it 50 doors on this side, and I'm not sure that's the number, 50 trucks don't leave in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? These things are staggered throughout. That should be accounted, and I will make sure they speak to that during the testimony for you. But that's the general answer for it.
Okay.
The other thing is, if you read further in there, there's also a re-signalization commentary
I read that.
in there. That's, it does work. I mean, I do this often.
I know it does. I've seen it,
Okay.
And I appreciate that being in there. We've said that from the beginning. The planning board, since you go directly to DOT, the planning board has no jurisdiction, it's DOT's, but the last leverage we have is the financial agreement. Traffic remains an issue. I think this has addressed a lot of the issue for me.
Okay.
I would like it amplified to explain what you just did. Yes, there's a number of, provisions for 800 trucks, but it's going to operate this way, and so on. I would like your consultant to just put something in there that describes the level of service.
Okay.
And we want to do this very transparently. We want to post this. We want people to understand that traffic's coming, but we're not predicting Armageddon here.
Understood.
The timing is good. I understand where that's going. I'd also be looking for a commitment from your firm to make a bona fide effort on other non-structural members, whether it's staggering of work hours. I understand that your tenants ultimately
Correct.
do that, but as you rent, I'd like an eye on that and look for opportunities to avoid peak log jams.
No, and I think that's appropriate, and what we strive to do in every project that I've built, and I've built quite a bit, as I've said, when a tenant's identified, I immediately ask for a meeting with the mayor, council, whoever the delegates are, to make sure we have an introduction, because this isn't really a cut and dry business. It's about creating a business opportunity for them in there. They're going to be working with residents in the nearby area as far as employees. There's a lot of communication that needs to happen between the township and a potential customer. And I will commit to you, I will do that with everyone, and any concerns that need to be addressed prior to signing a lease, we will speak to that. And
I keep bringing up Robbinsville, the first Christmas, that was a disaster, and then people figured out ways.
Well, you know, it's funny, they have not come to me here, I will say that, okay, just so you know. But I am working with them in another part of the state right now. And the first thing I said to them was, I read the paper too. So I am not about to put my reputation on the line with the community I've worked hard in to have you guys come in and do a Robbinsville. And they did a mea culpa on that one, that they really blew it.
Yeah.
And they said, but the bottom line is we did figure it out. And apparently they have, from all I can tell.
Well, I'd like to take advantage of your experience there, and
Sure.
I think he's on the right path with this. I'd like him to amplify and explain a few things better. I don't need all the tables, nobody's going to understand them, but the narrative I'd like to throw up on the web. And I'd like some sort of corporate commitment to, you know, do your best for these non-structural.
No, as I said, I will commit to you personally to hold these meetings with, you know, any and all. If you want to put a team together to work with us and to communicate that way, we're just a phone call away to do that. And I mean that sincerely, because that's the way we operate.
Let me ask you a stupid question. Because of the location of this, what's the likelihood of somebody picking something up at the port in New Jersey, heading up to the Lehigh Valley on 78, and then coming back this way to pick something up here?
Not likely, because generally when they're moving goods, like by the container full, they're going to a DC such as this.
Right.
To do that, and then conversely, they're going back the other way to take the things out.
The only reason I asked that was because, you know, I could see people cutting down 22 to get to this. How much traffic would we have coming?
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is if you look at what happens now, as I said here earlier, there's so many trucks are going by back and forth on the N78, they're doing exactly that, what I described here right now. If this were a Target, let's say, if somebody was Nestle out in the valley, Nestle wouldn't necessarily have any connection with Target, you know what I mean?
Right.
So they're different businesses. But again, those are certainly things we can speak to when
I'm just trying to think of the traffic flow coming, you know, eastbound too, from the Lehigh Valley to stop here.
Sure. In my experience of doing this for 30-some years, I don't think that's likely, but I think the best way to address that is potential customers come up, that we'll sit and talk it through, because at the end of the day, we want it to work all the way around. You know, we're not here and gone tomorrow. We're here for a long term. As I said, I'm committed to the state of New Jersey. Matter of fact, I was just with the DEP commissioner this morning because we were singled out, to our horn a little bit, as one of the best public-private partnership developers to work with in the state on sites such as this. She spoke to the Perth Amboy site that we dealt with on that. So we've got a good reputation with DEP. We're very closely with them. And as my father told me a long time ago, a reputation takes you a minute to lose. And we're not about to do that. And they're good sounding words, but if you look at what we've accomplished, I believe my words prove themselves out. So just as a little bit on this, our plan, and I think this is an important thing, assuming we would satisfy all questions and everybody's satisfied with it, we would like to build the building tomorrow, right? I mean, that's where we are motivated. Because the $40-some million or whatever it took to buy this entire property, my team has to pay interest on that the minute I called it from Texas teachers. Somehow that's how they work. So we're burning a clock on it. So I don't want to, sometimes I get caught with baggage of prior developers and projects I work on, and I keep emphasizing that we are not them, and we are motivated, and we want to actually do this project. Our goal would be to start moving dirt and construction, you know, actually on a road, ideally, if we work it all out, August, September, start going through site plan and grading, and, you know, deliver a finished building, say by third or fourth quarter of 19. So we're serious about it, we're real about it, and this isn't another pie in the sky dream.
Is this still slated to be the first building?
This is going to be the first building, yeah. We have other buildings on the other side.
Right.
They're going to lag behind because candidly, just to give you a little idea.
I mean, not that it really matters, I just,
No, that's okay, because it was a point of contention I was aware of from what I heard, so I want to be really clear about this. So one of the challenges on this site, again, this is 22 up through here, the road is really the first thing that we have to really put in, okay, because this has all the water, sewer infrastructure that I need, okay? This is a $30-some-odd million road that's got to go in. So this is actually the very first thing to go through. We do have a temporary approval for construction access here right now, but the final design and everything is still underway with DOT. So this will happen first, and then this site is the slate up that we begin moving dirt, like I said, as soon as we possibly can. This project will take, 12, 18 months to complete. It's a large building, obviously. We are proceeding shortly thereafter to work on 3 buildings next door. The reason I say these things are slated later is you're aware of the environmental challenges on this site. One of the hardships that we had trying to figure out how to structure this was, where is Ingersoll Rand in their process? What have they got done? What are they going to commit to do? And when can I actually build over there? So they are still active in this area here, and especially this area up in here. Mostly oils up through here. They had that 1 million gallon oil tank that let go years ago. Not sure when. And down through here, they have the foundry sinks, they have PCBs. So these are the things that are really delaying us. So yes, is the answer to the question, is that we're going to be in here, and we don't really, this is grading. I don't see any issues holding us up whatsoever. We've gone out, we've tested soils. We're mindful of the geology up here. We may hit some speed bumps with the cursed rock. It's going to happen. We know that. We understand how to deal with that. But that's the only thing that gives me any slight concern, is just dealing with the soil conditions as I go. But we are prepared, as I said to you, to move forward, and the capital is allocated. So you can certainly support that by doing any research on myself or Bridge Development Company. And ultimately, this is an approximate idea. This isn't the final design of what this building will look like. But this is pretty typical of a modern, what we refer to as a Class 1A distribution building. These are concrete panels, be 40-foot clear. The blue and gray is a bridge color, so that's kind of why it's that way. The only time we didn't do that, because my CEO and senior partner, he picked blue and gray, so that's what we do. When Target came, they said, that's nice, but we like red. So we painted that one building red. It's the only one out of our portfolio. But for at least that large, we compromised. And that's pretty much what it'll look like. And as I said, we will be before the site plan to answer any more questions in depth. I will make note of those particular questions so we can dig into it. I know it's important, which is why we commissioned the study. And those numbers on the trucks and everything are not made up. I understand there was some confusion about the first traffic study years ago. These are based on the references and books that traffic engineers use, trip generation counts. So we will absolutely get into all of that as well.
I'm not going to get into the details, but this does a lot more for me than the first study did.
Like I said, I wasn't part of it, so I won't even take a bullet for that one. But no, this is what we do, and as I said, you should be asking those questions, and we should be answering them for you. I absolutely believe that.
well, we're not gonna know everything, or you're gonna be able to tell us everything. Sometimes you don't know what you got till you get it.
Of course.
But from my own selfish standpoint, I've always said the toughest thing for me about getting out of town is getting out of town.
Sure.
Right now, there are 7 lights between my house and 78, just the way I go to 78, and this will be number 8. So, I just, the traffic is a big concern on a very old road in a very old, very old area, so.
Sure.
But.
And one thing I will say too, because this question didn't come up tonight, and I'm sure it'll come up during site plan. I even remember using the access off the 3rd.
Yep.
That's going to be closed. There's no truck traffic or anything going to be on that whatsoever, okay?
Will that be open to cars?
It will be at some point. Right now it's closed, obviously, for safety reasons.
Right.
It'll be cars and pedestrian traffic ultimately when we get to that point. But even as we develop this site, this entire area, these three buildings in particular are in a state of flux as far as us knowing when we're going to develop. Because Ingersoll Rand is doing something called thermal desorption. They're injecting long steel rods in the ground and heating them up and trying to bake the oil off. It's an approved method, evidently. We checked with the DEP, they've supported it. And they started it, and apparently it's working. We just don't know how long it's going to take to get it done. So that's why we're starting here, where we know we can. Ultimately, when the Ingersoll Rand gets out of our way here, we'll do these, probably start within 8 to 10 months after this. But you'll see they're also having to become smaller buildings, mostly because of geography, to be honest with you, the slopes. And, but that's, but I wanted to point that out because I know that question comes up from time to time. Sir?
Just getting back to the colors before, and I don't want to interrupt before. You said blue and gray are Bridges' color.
Yes.
Blue and gold is Lopatcong's colors. So since it's facing 22, I'm not asking to change the color.
No, I understand what you're saying. I will,
Maybe a little hint of gold in there somewhere.
I understand, and I think
As a proud resident of Lopat, drive by and see some of the, proud colors.
You mean they're waiting at the lady behind the trucks?
or if they're not waiting, they drive by too fast, they'll never see it. So, we'll find out what the right answer is.
Do you want a big panther on the wall? Why not?
Well, I'm sure we can find a way to reflect something. I appreciate that. No, I got it. I am not offended or taken back by any stretch of the
As
imagination.
long as it looks nice and professional, and that's exactly what that looks like, that's really all I care about.
And it will be. It'll be a Class 1A. We've got a bunch of buildings there. If you ever wanted to see one, I'd be happy to take you to any of the buildings we've actually built. I'm proud to say we're one of the most active industrial redevelopers of old sites in the state of New Jersey, and I'm proud of that fact that we've been able to figure out ways to get these things done. That's kind of the introduction and status of where we are. If you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to stay as long as you'd like, or I know we've been talking about the financial agreement, so I brought Mike Cacavelli, our attorney, to speak to that. If you want to head to that point, or...
I had a question for you.
Yes.
I know a major driver of traffic will be the number of employees that work in these buildings. For this type of building or size of building, it's a high cube warehouse. How many employees would you typically expect to be employed in that type of building?
So it's an interesting question because it does vary based on the end user, right? But the amount of automation in these buildings today is pretty significant. You go through, like Target is putting in Perth Amboy $20 million worth of material handling computerized systems. In that 750 square foot building, they're going to be 500 to 700 people, but not on one shift, right? In that case, they have 3 shifts. They'll be working around the clock.
Let me ask
So
you
it's a
this,
few hundred, I just can't tell you exactly.
the 3rd Street entrance,
Yes.
that would the employees be required to use that exit?
I don't know we can actually require them to
Okay.
do that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think practically speaking, what I really believe is going to happen, when you think about how this overall plan lays out, based on experience, anybody that's going to work down in this section is all coming through Roseberry. Right?
Okay.
Whether they're going to be going further west on 22 and coming around, or if they're coming up from down and heading east, or coming from Easton. I don't really know where they're coming from, but they're going to come through Roseberry and come up through here. They are not going to drive all the way around and come back into here. So I really believe, based on all this, the majority of traffic coming through this point is going to be this for cars. And as I said, 78 is really going to be the main truck driver, if you will, back and forth from the port of Elizabeth and Newark.
Okay. I mean, at one time there were, I think, about how many employees at Ingersoll? 3,000, maybe?
There was several thousand.
Some more?
Was it more than that even? So, you didn't want to be on Roseberry Street at 3:30. Growing up,
Is that
the
right?
first time I licensed, you did not want to be on Roseberry Street at 3:30. That's when they let it out, and it was,
Yeah, and
Back to
these
second.
will be, because they're different businesses and they're not on like one shift per se,
Yeah.
you're gonna have staggered. And as you point out, I think that's an appropriate thing to discuss as we go forward, and
Fine.
happy to introduce our potential customers as we're getting ready to execute leases.
Okay.
So Mike, I will turn this to you. This is a little tougher to see, but Michael, just do an overview, excuse me.
I'll just do it. Good evening, nice to see the council tonight. While we're here, again, Bridge has made an application for, oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, your full name?
Last name, it's Michael Cacavelli, C-A-C-C-A-V-E-L-L-I.
Thank you.
So, Bridge has made an application to the township for a long-term tax exemption, commonly referred to as a pilot payment in lieu of tax, P-I-L-O-T. And if I'm going too basic, feel free to stop me, but I just wanted to give a general overview for the audience. Essentially, it's a redevelopment tool where any new development is not regularly taxed, it's exempted, and there are a number of state formulas in the statute that are applied, and there's a negotiation, and you come up with an amount that gets paid in lieu of regular taxation. The municipality is engaged an expert, I believe, here in the audience, Mr. Poole, Todd Poole. The application I know has been reviewed by Mr. Poole. We've had many conversations with Mr. Poole, the development team, myself, Mr. Poole. He's made a lot of comments. We've had a number of negotiating sessions. We've revised the application accordingly, tried to take all of the input into account. And so what was submitted, and what I believe you have in front of you tonight, was that revised application. And what's been proposed for this is a little bit different of a pilot. There's something called a redevelopment area bond law pilot, and that's what we're asking for here. And the difference is a portion of the pilot is used to pay for infrastructure for the site. You heard from Jeff before that this is an expensive site to redevelop. Between the geotech, the environmental, all the site improvements, it's an expensive project. So one of the things that we're asking for is the ability to have a bond that gets paid back over the term of the pilot, if you will, to help pay for some of that infrastructure, probably the roadway, the traffic signal, and so forth. And so what we did is we made sure that first we kind of negotiated with the township team and came up with a number that we believe is fair for payment in lieu of services. And then that bond debt that I'm talking about, service, which we refer to as the pledged portion, that's in addition, that's outside of the municipal share, so it's not coming out of the municipal share revenue. It's just something the project will pay as it goes along, and it'll help, every little bit helps at this point, and it'll help the capital stack for the project. The overall need for the pilot, and I think this is important to understand, it's not saving the developer money per se, because these type of buildings are triple net leased, so the tenants are the people who wind up saving money off full boat taxes. Why is that important here? As you heard, the market that this building is going to operate in and compete in is really Lehigh Valley. Pennsylvania has a significantly cheaper property tax system than New Jersey. I know that's probably not a surprise to anyone here. No. And to be competitive, a tenant, very much like a homeowner, has a budget that they can afford. And whether the monthly payment is mortgage, taxes, they have a number they can afford. Tenants similar can pay lease payments, property taxes, operating expenses for the project. It's referred to as occupancy cost. So you have to be competitive with your market, which again is Lehigh Valley, to attract tenants. Otherwise the tenants, if that occupancy cost is twice what it is in Lehigh Valley, they're just simply not going to come. And the other part of that is you need to achieve certain rent levels, because you could say to yourself, well, if they won't come, charge a lesser rent. The problem with that is very expensive project to build, as you've seen, and you have to get a certain rent level to make the numbers work. So at the end of the day, this really is all math. We've gone through the math and the justification and the studies and so forth. Again, Mr. Poole, I know he's looked at it very hard himself and studied the relevant market. My understanding is he's had a report and he's discussed it with the council, so we believe the council is well informed. And so really what we're asking for, and you have, again, in the packet, the full detail for the 30 years, but I thought it might just be helpful if we just reviewed quickly the first 5 years. So what's proposed is this base annual service charge formula that starts at, and it's dependent on the square footage size of the building. We have a pretty good idea what size building's going to be built, but sometimes in construction, things might flex a little bit. We don't think significantly. Jeff could speak to that. Maybe 100 square feet here or there. So this number's pretty firm. But 49 cents a square foot starting out, which is a $481,000 a year payment of just service charge. The first 3 years are a little bit lower just to help with absorption of this property. Because this is a 1 million square foot building. You could get lucky and have one tenant, or you could have 2 or 3 tenants. It just depends on what the market ultimately bears. This first 3 years is kind of that marketing period, seeing what you're going to get. So what we ask for is a little bit more consideration in the early years, and then we hit year 4 where the project stabilizes and you're up to 65 cents a square foot, which is $634,000 a year in pilot revenue. And then after that, and that's from year 4 to 5, you can see it increases 2% a year, which we're hoping pretty much approximates the normal tax increase year over year for the township. Then the rest of the math we've gone through on here, and Mr. Poole was very helpful on this as well, because we want to show the net to the municipality. There was a county share on the pilot's 5%, so we've subtracted that out. There's a land tax that gets paid. We did our best. We worked again with the municipality to figure out what that land tax would be. We subtracted that credit out. And so we get down to this net share, which again starts at $406,000, ramps up at stabilization of $551,000 per year. And this is exclusive of the bond debt service that's layered on top of this. The bond debt service winds up being pretty flat, actually. It's about 4 cents per year per square foot, or about $42,000 a year. Again, that's a rough number, just kind of assumptions were made, but we don't think it'll be materially different. And so going back to the municipal net, if we add up, we take the credits, we do all the debits, credits, and so forth, municipal share of the land tax and et cetera. In year 4, municipalities getting about $551,000 a year in service charges, and then those will escalate going forward 2% a year. It's pretty close to, it's actually, we think will slightly exceed the normal municipal share of what would be full vote taxation. I think right now the municipal share is about 28-29% of the overall tax rate, and we've done our best in the negotiations to mimic that. So if anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm thinking about this bond concept, right? This is not a municipal bond.
That's correct. Let me make that clear as well. What we're asking for in the bond is the municipality would act as what's called a conduit issuer. You're really just serving to issue the bond. It's non-recourse. You're not responsible at all for the bond. The security for the bond is the project. If a payment's missed, it's a super priority lien. It's ahead of anything else. And so if that $42,000 a year isn't paid, the bondholder has the right to foreclose on the project. It doesn't cost the municipality anything. I would submit it's probably very unlikely that for $42,000 a year, a 1 million square foot building gets repossessed.
And these are privately issued, private placement bonds.
Exactly, privately issued. It's not going to be marketed like a normal municipal bond would be on the securities market. Bridge will identify an investor. It might want to be a Bridge affiliate, but it'll be a private placement. So the municipality really is just serving as I said before, a conduit. It's just essentially issuing it, putting its name on it, but it's completely non-recourse.
And Mike, then there's
Make that bond tax-free?
Excuse me?
Does that make that like a municipal bond that would be tax-free?
It would be, correct, because
This is the attractive nature of it.
it's attracted for that purpose, and it's being used again for infrastructure, which is the key. For federal tax exempt treatment, you have to be publicly used, accessible infrastructure, which we're proposing here is the traffic improvements.
And the process, because the county's involved, with the different boards involved in the approval of this. too.
Well, there is a local finance board, which is a state level regulator. This application would go, your bond council, municipality's bond council would actually make the application, we would assist them to prepare it. Goes before local finance board, they review the application, and then they approve or disapprove, so you do have that oversight. My experience with these generally is, they get the full disclosure, local finance board, because it's revenue neutral to the municipality, they kind of just approve them as a matter of course, because it's not going to adversely affect your budget, which is really what they're there for, right? To make sure municipalities are being fiscally responsible.
I don't want to negotiate it here, but maybe I'll share some thoughts with you. I personally, and this is just me, one member of the board, I prefer not to have first reading until we have the financial agreement in front of us and it's been vetted by our lawyer and we've all had a chance to go through it. And we're not there yet. Now, we're prepared to work with you. As fast as you get that done, we can get it done.
Well, we actually did submit the draft financial agreement.
Just haven't seen it yet. And I know I've worked with other towns, I've seen 18-page agreements, I've seen 60-page agreements. We haven't had to sit down with our attorney on that.
Okay.
Who did you submit it to?
We submitted it to your attorney
Okay.
with the complete package.
That was a month, 2 months.
It was about 2 months ago.
The second thing, Todd has been very helpful to us, but I have 4 different reports, and as I go through them, I'm seeing things that I need some more information on. Things like the land tax credit, I've seen numbers all over the place on that. I don't know whether that's just the local share we get credit for, or we have to give you credit for, or whether it goes beyond that. We have a open space tax. Is it just the municipal tax plus the open space, or so on? There's things like that that have to be cleaned up. I guess the biggest one is, as I went through this, is the debt service. The first one I saw didn't address debt service at all. And then all of a sudden 42,000 showed up, and now we're being offered 42,000. Well, it didn't show up in the first one. I mean, are we really gaining 42,000, or I don't know where this is. So there's some things like that we have to talk about. The third thing, and this is my personal feeling, is I guess Peaburg got 45 cents a square foot. Our needs and our position in this project is different. I think you've come up to 49 and a fraction.
We're actually 65.
Pardon me?
We're actually at 65 cents when we hit that stabilization. That's what I mentioned, with 49.
On the 481, that's computed on the basis of just under 50 cents a square foot,
That's correct. That's what I was saying. That was the 3-year ramp-up period we were asking for to lease up.
Yeah.
But when we hit, again, what we're calling stabilization, year 4, it's really the pilot's premise on 65 cents a square foot and then escalates upward.
I guess simply put, we were looking for a little assistance at the early on because all the expenses are into the project and before any revenue really gets generated.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get a little help in the end, but we were very cognizant of your point, and that's why we ended up at a true number after ramp up of 65 cents.
All right, well, we have to nail that yet going forward. And then I guess the last thing, I just looked at what the conventional taxes would be, and I understand that the difference in pilots, and the RAB pilot is really the most flexible for you fellows and the most advantageous, and I understand that. I understand why you want it. I understand how it affects your economics. But I do look, according to the data I have from Todd, your normal taxes would be over $2 million. I look at the first year, it's 456, you're about 22% of, full tax. That's a good discount, and even moving forward, you're still under a quarter of the conventional taxes. And, you know, I'm just trying to decide for myself if we're at the end of this, or if there's a little more I'd look for.
Well, I think, Mr. Pryor, Councilor Pryor, just to be accurate, when you're talking about the percentages, the 2 million, the normal municipal share of it would be 29%.
No, I understand that, I understand, but, you know, I mean, our taxpayers pay the school board too, and the county gives us benefits, so you're getting a discount from the normal tax rate, a little over 75%.
Well, in all due respect, and this is not intended to say anything offensive, the project couldn't get built at that. So in as much as you might view it as a discount, there wouldn't be.
I understand the need for it,
Right.
right? I have to be satisfied that,
And I think we all understand the scope of this. This goes beyond just you building the economics around it,
I understand.
you know, with the businesses here. I mean, obviously, there's been nothing new of any consequence that's gone into this area in 30 years, so. And the last one was the Phillipsburg Mall. You see where that's at. So,
and you're building 3.8 million square feet. I mean, a penny on that does something for us.
yeah.
So, you know, we have to have that discussion on,
You're here to
council,
protect
yeah.
your interests, we're here to protect ours.
Yeah.
No, I'm
That's
not
it.
offended by it. So my question is, because since we've submitted over 60 days ago, and we've been asking for the dialogue, which we've not been able to get,
Right.
it's appropriate for me to ask when we could have this conversation, because as you've heard my timeline.
Right away. You know what, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. I understand you're, you know, an A-list developer, and you got all the credentials, and you're serious about the project. And we have a job too. We have to get the best deal for our town. We have to make sure this thing doesn't get gridlocked the day it opens. We got to make sure we get the best deal. We're all part-time. These pilots have many moving parts. And I think we're just at the point now where we're wrapping our arms around it. And we're near the end, but there's still a little work to do yet, even if it's just achieving a consensus up here.
No, I appreciate that, and you can also appreciate that in my world, it's winter right now. Because I think about building and when I can get things done.
Yeah.
And now is the time to begin to move dirt and get things done. And we're going to blink it with eye by the time I finish my DEP approvals.
Yeah.
If I can.
I think we need one more sit down with Todd, and we'll see if we can't close this thing.
Is it fair to request that we discuss it again in 30 days?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely.
Fine with me.
Sure. So would what would the process be? You come back to...
We'd like to sit with Todd.
No, I understand.
Ourselves.
No, but I'm saying 30 days after, because I'm planning my calendar, would it be coming back to the council at that 30 days, or what would you propose?
We would like to have a sit down with our own attorney on just the structure of the financial agreement. And I think if we all understand it, and if we all hear the recommendation, we could probably have a first reading soon. The planning board is separate. You know where you are there. You have some things to clean up, and you can start, you know, start moving dirt.
Yeah, under a general development plan we can, but we can't build really anything on the building until the formal application, since we're very aware we don't want to misstep by accident. So it really does kind of set the...
I get the chairman sitting here. And,
No, I meant the pilot.
oh, yeah.
Pilot is what really triggers it. Because if you can't really begin beneficial construction until that agreement is resolved. So that is kind of a gatekeeper for us.
I can certainly sit down with Mr. Poole if, you know what the rest of the council wants to do. Joe, you want Joe and I to sit down with him, or what do you more?
Yeah, we'll need probably another special meeting someplace.
We have a next council meeting, first Wednesday in August, and we have a special meeting right after that.
Well, yeah, Jim and Mayor and I sit with Todd in the meantime
Right. So
and clean up all the concerns
If
that
they
we've
go
heard.
forward, without any hiccups, with Todd, we'll probably have the first reading
Mid-August.
Mid-August.
You all right with that?
And the last thing I would offer, if there's any questions or whatever, we encourage dialoguing with it so we don't lose, because that's like 30 days later for me, like my schedule, I'm painfully aware of what happens to me. So I'd love to dialogue if you have any questions, concerns that we can address in that 30-day period to work everything out, so we can just move it forward.
The mayor and the president. Gary, you have a question?
The only thing that I would look at now is that the conditions that were stated at the last planning board meeting won't be settled. You have a 30-day window you're looking at getting that to be, discussions have to be actual financial agreement put in place. And one of the conditions was we were going to allow construction on any portion of the property until those were settled. One of the other ones was the Highlands letter of conformity. The other one was the DOT approval of the intersection improvements. And then whatever else we would be coming up to in the actual construction and the grading and the temporary stormwater runoff. So,
And our hope is that it could be approval realized subject to those conditions being satisfied, right? So we understand that.
So, whether we would be willing to, we weren't willing to at the last meeting with the information that we had, that it would preclude us from allowing you to go to work without those conditions being met. And since we're scheduled for the 25th this month for your next,
Your presentation on, actually it's on the building itself.
that's on the building itself, correct?
Correct.
However, you start moving the dirt, I mean, there was a confusion between your attorney and seeing the board about what construction consists of.
Okay.
She felt that the actual structural building was a particular point for actual construction. And yes, that would be for the building, but we look at it as you're going to be moving a lot of earth out of there in a considerable period of time. What happens if it's not consummated in that period of time and you have all this dirt moved? And the answers I was receiving back from how it would be rehabilitated were really not satisfactory.
No, there were bonds and stuff, and I guess some of the confusion was there actually, one approval as a general development plan was received, and I guess there was a preliminary going for final and just the roadway, so there was a little confusion there, I will absolutely agree. But if I could simplify the process, what I'd like to accomplish, if at all possible, is the building site plan review, work through the details necessary, but the final approval is subject to the satisfaction of all those remaining items that you discussed, so that we can use the time in between to kind of work through any other issues, with the understanding that the things we discussed here are still have to be addressed before we can move. So I didn't realize we'd be out another 30 some odd days on the pilot, so that's where I'm off in my schedule.
Basically, what I'm asking is, do you still want to come in on the 25th?
I'd like to work through it, honestly, work through the site plan per se, work through, again, satisfying all the other things, the traffic discussions, there's a lot of things we have to work through.
Right.
And working those issues with a clear understanding of certain things that, subject to the pilot with the things you discussed, they're going to be out there and we have to work through them. But having done as many large projects as this, it's hard to wrap them all up at one meeting, so I prefer, with your cooperation, to kind of work towards, it's the old saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Was it productive to use this period of time to work through and satisfy all the concerns, address them, and then at the end, we're left with a handful that we absolutely have to address. But if you try to address them all at once, it's very confusing. If that's satisfactory, we'd like to do that.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing. I didn't want to, you said the attorneys had this a long time. That could be true, but I'm sure they were waiting on the pilot as well. And, I mean, this thing like the debt service rebate, that's a fairly new proposal and so on. So that's been evolving.
And in full fairness, that's what was submitted over 2 months ago, but that's okay, we're with respect.
June 8th is the date I have that the council was advised of the analysis, so
Okay, I can't
Right,
speak to it.
you know what, it's a 30-year agreement. Council's gonna do what it has to do.
Of course, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to suggest otherwise. But, we're serious and sincere about building. I hope you appreciate that. I think you do.
No, I do.
And we'd like to work together to
Yeah.
get a mutual successful outcome and get started as fast as we can.
It won't mean anything to anybody else, but it'll mean something to me if I see something done with that Ingersoll property in my time here.
Now, for a lot of us, I think I was with the new DEP Commissioner McCabe this morning, and we were talking about various kind of projects and stuff. And there's a number of sites such as this, unfortunately, in New Jersey, since all the industry left. And it really is it's a true win for public-private partnerships to take some of these sites that have laid like this for years, and unless they're remediated and done, they're going to continue to be that way. So we're excited about the opportunity.
I like the idea that you outbuilding you first.
Yeah, understood.
There was a promise made in the past, and the city is
Very aware of that. So
very aware of that.
I try to hit as many of the hot buttons as I could. Like I said, I don't want to be tarred and feathered, if you will, with some of the prior, but there were certain things that I understood were important, and I understood why.
When you get the approval from DOT for the 22 construction, for the ramp, the exit and the entry, how soon do you expect to get that answer, the final approval?
It's DOT is the problem, right?
Right.
Because with the, I hate to say it, but I was down there when there was a change of guard from the old governor to the new governor, and a third of the people left. So it's kind of painful to get through, but we were told 60 days.
When was that? 6 days from when?
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
So it really should all kind of line up is what I'm beginning to see here.
Right.
But that's why I suggest there's a lot of the moving pieces. We'll keep tackling them all collectively in parallel paths, and we'll just kind of knock them off one at a time, but they're all subject to the final approvals. We understand it.
Right. So is it perceivable that construction there in 22, right? That will start as we approach winter?
Well, we won't be starting anything until we have all approvals.
Right, no, I know that, but without any hiccups,
It should be before winter.
before winter. I mean, because you have,
Based on what I'd like, yes.
well, I mean, just on Route 22 itself, with the
Yeah.
disruption of traffic, and construction going through there. There's a lot of traffic there in the morning, and coming home,
Understood.
especially approaching the winter. It's gonna be,
More traffic in the winter?
it's gonna create,
Oh,
a mess.
I mean, the disruption, sure. But again, we'll be prepared with all our people coming to the site plan meeting to discuss it.
right,
Because we really, the application at the end of the month is really the building specific, and that's really the traffic generator. So we'll also be prepared to speak to that.
I think provided everybody's comfortable with the numbers, that we'll expedite things from our end as quickly as we can.
Okay.
That's really what it boils down to for the council.
I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
so,
That's all we can ask.
okay. Anyone else have any questions of any kind?
This is probably a technical one. How far along are you with the negotiations with the Highlands?
I'm not the right person to speak to
Okay.
that. John Porsick, who you met,
Yes.
the last. So John's been my partner for 20-some years. He's a PE planner, and he does all that stuff, so I just not the right person to do that.
My hands are tied with allowing to even
Oh, I
stand like that unless we have completion from that, so.
And I apologize, somehow it got missed, and I don't know why. I was a little upset when I heard that, to be honest with you, because it's taken us so long to get final engineer's plans, why that couldn't have been spoken to, but it happened, and I apologize.
All the necessary.
We're just trying to get a lot of moving parts from every angle together.
No,
Yeah.
and this goes back to my early comment, it really is hard to develop in the state of New Jersey.
Listen, I'm a director of facility for the local school district here.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with your project, but you and I can go to Home Depot right now, buy a bottle of Roundup, go home, kill our entire front lawns if we want to. If I set foot at any one of my schools, I gotta have a tank, a truck, a placard, a license to spray the same things around the fencing that I can go buy off the shelf and sell.
I believe it.
Welcome to the state of New Jersey.
Amen. We share that for sure.
So, to a much smaller scale, I get where you're coming from.
I understand. Well, we thank you for the opportunity to discuss it openly, and as I've said the first few times we've met, we encourage a dialogue. This is us. We have no agendas other than as I put forth here, and as you will come to see as you work with us, we are who we say we are, and we are people of our word.
And we'd love nothing more than to work with you. My entire life is invested here in this township, so the rest of the guys have all been here a long time also. So
Sure.
we want to do what's best for our residents.
Understood.
So-
Of course.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. That's why I asked.
Todd, can you come on up front for a second?
You've seen it. That's the beauty of modern technology. You're much younger than I am. You grew up with it. Me, it's
We're still in open session, so we don't want to negotiate, but we gotta make arrangements for our attorney, and me and the mayor to get together. And I think we can clean it up quickly, but I still have some things. So then the attorney's got to advise us on the agreement, so that's where we are. So I don't know, Beth, can you quarterback that, or the scheduling, or?
Sure. The only thing I want from you guys is that we wanted to have another special meeting in August.
Right.
ready to make a motion for that.
So, you know, it takes a while to get that scheduled, so, Wednesday the 15th is,
That's fine.
I mean, our meetings are first, so that's the open Wednesday.
Do we want to do something, we do something the week before?
I think,
Thursday or something, or?
Right, we're gonna,
When?
What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Maybe we got the...
Well, so the 15th, we got one on, we got to meet, our regular meeting's on the 1st. Can we do
Right.
something like on the 9th, the Thursday, or?
Yeah, we can do the 9th.
we'd have to have the first reading, we'd have to be comfortable with everything. I was gonna say more like the 15th or something.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do the
Mid-month,
15th.
whatever that, however that works.
And then you would probably end up having, let's see, if you had it on the 15th, I got it in the paper on the 24th. Then we have to have another 10 days. We might make the 5th then for the second reading.
Well, we can move it up a day or two if that's what we need to make the,
Well, I have to know now, so
Yeah.
I have plenty of time, but,
You said the 15th, you want to move it to,
I mean, I would make it, because our next meeting then would be September 5th.
she's trying to have the second
Okay,
reading on
that's fine.
at the next meeting.
as long as the 15th?
Yeah, if we do the 15th, I get it in the paper on the 24th, I got 10 days. That gets me to the 3rd, and we have our meeting on the 5th.
Okay.
So you can do second reading.
That would give Gary two more planning board meetings.
Well, this won't go to the planning board, so.
This, what I'm just saying, for anything you may have.
And
Sure.
Did you ask Katrina to send copies of the financial agreement out?
She
All right,
has
we'll
not
go
seen
with that.
it. She does have
Oh, you got it.
financial
I
agreement.
already tried that once.
So, the text.
Well, we haven't seen it, right?
No, we haven't
Yeah,
seen it. No.
And it's quicker if we see it, we'll just be better prepared to meet with her.
We can, all agreeable.
So the first-
Board's on board, we can review what they want to come in for, the site, for building plan, site plan for, work on it. Don't have to actually approve it or they give me okay for the final site plan, but at least work through the details that we normally go through. Get that ready to go for, and if we have to have it, we'll have a special
You were actually in very good shape. George already issued his technical review letter for Building 7, and our office is about to do the same. Actually, I have a draft letter. I just have to get it finalized and out at this point.
The
So,
only stumbling block on that would be the Highlands.
correct, yeah. If the Highlands does not issue their consistency determination, there is no hearing on July 25th, so pressure's on. I know there's a site walk yesterday, so I think you are getting closer to getting that letter, but
Okay, there was one other thing that I wanted to discuss tonight. On roads.
What's that?
There was one other thing I wanted to bring up tonight with roads. With Boulder, so if we're done with the bridge, they can go.
Thank you very much.
No,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Beth will reach out to you. Your schedule looks,
Good night.
you know, pretty easy.
You know,
I mean, if we have to do it after work, whatever we have to do to.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. I mean, I'll make it work.
How far are you coming from?
I just came from Harrisburg on the train,
Oh,
which from Long Island 2 days before on the train. I'm gonna go home for the first time this week.
Okay, that's a good thing.
And that's in Philly, right? So-
No, I live right outside of.
well, I will give you a call and give you a heads up on some of my questions.
Okay,
So
yeah.
be ready.
All right.
There.
All right, Todd, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Tom.
You want me to get something set up with Todd then? so
Yes,
that he
yeah,
can come
correct.
up here? Okay.
Paul, you want to speak to what you sent me as far as the roads?
yes. Going back in, I think it was in the month of May, I had issued a budget for 6 roadways to be improved in the township here as part of a 2018 resurfacing program. The mayor recently met with me as well as Councilman Bill Caro to review that program, but to also discuss some other roadways that they would like to see incorporated into that program. And I was asked to go out and do some other roadway evaluations and come up with some costs for those particular roadways to add to the program. And the roadways in question were Red School Lane between Belvedere Road and Charles Road, which would get, you know, roughly about a third of the road completed, and the rest of the town would seek funding from the DOT on. I think it's a very good candidate for funding, but this would get some of that roadway addressed here in 2018. There are 2 roadways that run between Stokoe Avenue and Brakely Avenue. They're known as Enmore Road and Oxford Road. These particular roadways they're not very long, and they're really just feeders between those 2 roadways. There's really no units per se that are located on those roadways. And nevertheless, they are town streets. They're in poor condition. We had actually prepared plans many years ago to reconstruct those roadways. They would have to be updated, but that was something that we were asked to look at it as well. And then we were also asked to look at the area of South Fifth Street here in Morris Park between Baltimore Street and Route 22, and come up with an estimate for that. So I was able to complete those analyses, update the budget for, you know, to include those roads, and I factored in engineering and inspection costs into the overall program. We're looking at about $638,000 for these 10 roadways at this point, to get them addressed. That's my budget analyses at this point. A lot of them will be addressed, can be addressed in 2018, because they involve milling and resurfacing, and we would utilize the contractor with the Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council. In fact, I've already talked to that contractor about this program. So it was just a matter of marking it out and making a phone call and to getting them on board to get the work done once the money's in place for this program. Oxford and Enmore and perhaps South Fifth Street, because I think there's a need for some curbing on the street, may require us to do some, and at least do some quotes, perhaps some public bid. Actually, Oxford and Enmore, we will need to go out to bid. South Fifth Street, we may need to do some quotes for that particular roadway because of the need to construct some curbing. But I think the lion's share of these roadways, most notably Red School Lane, would be completed if the town were to budget the money, and which would allow me to get these contractors on board to do the work. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Gentlemen, any questions, comments?
Well, I guess my only comments, we'll have to sit down with Kim and figure out how the bonding
Kim was
is going to be
pretty,
structured.
Kim was pretty comfortable with it. She mentioned a figure up to $1.6 million, so obviously we're nowhere near that.
Yeah.
So, you know, the only question I had just sitting here thinking, would we be hurt, Paul, as far as a grant for Red School Lane, if we do a portion of it ourselves? Are they gonna just say, hey, you know what, you did this portion,
No,
carry on?
I actually think it's going to help you. It's
Okay.
going to show the town invested money and has started a program to improve the roadway.
Okay. You know, I've said it since I got here, it's time. We can't ignore it. And I think we not only need to let everybody travels Baltimore Street and Red School Lane, but we need to get into the neighborhoods too. Obviously you have the gas station out there, you've got the Key City Diner, a lot of cars travel there. You've got the gun place over here. So we got some businesses there. The Brass Rail is investing even more money into their building. If you haven't seen that, they've been closed this week. They've dressed it up on the outside, and I just think we need to make that area as nice as we can. And again, nothing's been done for probably 35, 40 years on those roads. It's ridiculous, but it's where we're at. So, Joe, if you want to sit down with Kim, we can sit down together with her. I don't think it'll take all that long. Find out.
Yeah, I mean, she just has to design the financing and then sit down and go over it with us. So really, she just gets that assignment. She can put it together. We just have to have it explained to us.
Can she have it ready for the next meeting?
I'm sure she could.
Okay.
Yeah, she definitely.
But she soon gets the stuff over on this.
She's not getting blindsided. She knows this is coming. I talk to her about it a lot.
So I'm ready to buy a horse, driving on Eastern Street.
Dana Street up here, which is not one of the roads we're addressing. It might as well be a dirt road. It's bad. So,
I tell you, that's good.
cleanup crew. Don't you ever see those little bags when they have the courts?
No, you have to have a hazmat.
All right, so everybody's comfortable with what we're doing? We can go to.
I have a question because
Go
I
ahead.
think time is of the essence.
Yep.
If we were to introduce this funding ordinance on August 1st, could there be a hearing at this special meeting on the 15th?
Absolutely.
Why not?
Yep.
Because that could allow me to go and start scheduling the work and get it done while the weather's decent.
Sure, absolutely.
Let's giddy up.
So we'll have 2 ordinances that night.
Yeah.
Well, the only other input I have is we should be getting a $600,000 rollback the end of this year. And maybe we could use some of that to minimize the size of the bond issue. We have an annual debt statement. We're at a comfortable point right now. Be worthwhile to stay in that ballpark.
Right.
We seem to be doing a little better on our reserve and so on, so.
Our revenues are good right now too.
Yeah.
We're ahead of what we projected, so. And I would think, it really has a whole lot to do with the pool's gotta be having a banner year. We don't make money there this year. There's a problem because it's hot and it's dry and we have some things going over there, so. Things are looking up. And I haven't filed a suit against Joe or anything yet, so. All right. Anything else, Sheldon?
Yep, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion, second.
All in favor?
Aye.